This podcast is for the sales professionals at every level. If you want to convert more prospects into paying customers, then you're in the right place. Because Joe has spent the last 3 decades mastering buying behaviors, personality types, emotional and logical triggers. This is the Sales Genius Podcast. It's only a numbers game if you want educated. It's time to get educated. Let's go! Educated. Want to learn how to close deals. Want to learn how to sell more. That's what we're here for at Sales Genius. Let's go!
Welcome to the Sales Genius Podcast with me, Joe Ingram, your host. Today's guest is Josh Shirley, a business-to-business sales expert with a passion for helping businesses grow revenue through innovative prospecting and referral building techniques. Okay, in this episode, right, we changed up the title a little bit for all of you, the LinkedIn Rule of 7. So Josh is going to share his step-by-step approach to creating lasting connections, and it's using LinkedIn as a powerful tool for building trust and generating leads. So if you're looking to take your LinkedIn game, which you should because the people there have money, right, to the next level, then this episode is packed with the insights and actionable advice that you're going to want. So let me bring up JR, who's here with us. JR, welcome up to the front. Josh, welcome. I'm going to move us around a little bit and say you get to take the big screen.
Oh, look
right?
who's got this big screen.
Yes, he's there. Thanks, Josh, for joining us. So, Josh, I want to start off, just throw out a question for you because I know everybody who's watching is going to go, hey, the rule of 7, that's intriguing, but can you explain to me what it is and how it applies to us prospecting, referral building on LinkedIn?
Yeah, simple definition is that the rule of 7 is an assumption that says the number of connections on LinkedIn that you have to the number of people you actually know on average is 7 to 1.
Wow.
So
So
if you're
I know I have 7 times more on LinkedIn
than what you know, yeah. So in a prospecting scenario, if I said to you, do you know JR? And I found him in your LinkedIn profile, and he might be somebody I want you to introduce me to.
right?
There's a 1 in 7 chance that you actually know JR well enough to make an introduction.
Valid. I'm going to tell you right now that rock solid. I just looked up right now. My LinkedIn's, I'm at 9,700 connections.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that just means I'm over here at 1,200 people I may know.
Right.
So,
That's generally what I find. And you have to keep in mind that I sell to salespeople. And so I'm often asking for referrals into other salespeople. And salespeople, as the three of us know, are the whores of LinkedIn. And we just connect to everybody. So
right.
if you're listening to this and you're in another industry, your rule of 7 may be more of a rule of 3, rule of 5, but I think 7 sets a good expectation.
I would agree with you. I think that it definitely is going to be, because I have had people go, so do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, why would you ask me that? And then they
Right.
tell me, oh, because I saw you're connected here. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if I'm connected there, then yeah, I'll make the introduction.
Yeah,
But
and you know 9,600 people. So that's like saying, oh, you're from this town. You're from this small town. Oh, do you know JR? Right? Like
right.
it's
You know
making an
JR, the guy at
assumption.
the gas station? Yeah. We saw
Yeah.
him the other day. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
your
Are you
windows,
from
sir?
Florida? You're from
Nice.
Florida. So is this other guy. Do you know Kevin?
Right. You must know each other, right? When you walk
Yeah.
by. Yeah. So, okay. So how does someone leverage that?
All right.
Right.
Yeah. Good start. So maybe we back and zoom out just a little bit and talk about referrals in general.
Okay.
Referrals as a lead source for salespeople. I think we'd all agree we'd take a referral over, hey, go make these 15 cold calls, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
the
And
most
higher growth,
bankable,
higher customer satisfaction. Right.
yeah. So we would definitely say that referrals. I haven't met a salesperson yet who wouldn't agree that it's the most bankable form of leads that you really have.
Right.
And problem is that sellers assume that referral can only be this passive stream of inbound leads that I don't really control. So I get one once in a while. Like I love referrals when they come. Like I might get 3 in December, but in January I get 9, and then February I get 1. We'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens. And so people take a wait and see approach with referrals. So the rule of 7, what it's meant to do is to be a process for you to mass produce referrals, or at least put a process in place for asking for them and using math and some Moneyball math to your advantage. And so that's the basic construct of it, right? So we have the idea that there's referrals out there, and like rule of 7 can be a way to find those referrals and a process for getting them. Typically, there's some things that stop salespeople from actually asking for referrals. So in Sandler, people who speak my lingo would call this head trash, or some limiting belief that I have about asking for referrals.
I like head trash much better than limiting belief.
Yeah.
Because I think limiting belief's been played out so much out there right now. Everybody tries to use the buzzwords from the
Sure.
woo-woo side. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Love it.
yeah. So, and here I am trying to create a buzzword around LinkedIn rule of 7, but hopefully somebody will hear it
It'll
and
work.
it'll help somebody. But yeah, the head trash could be, maybe I don't think I'm worthy. Right. Like I don't think that I'm worthy of a referral. Like the other thing is, a lot of times people who have, let's say, like an account executive, somebody with a lot of, not only do they have selling responsibilities, to obtain new clients for us, but they also have a book of business that they manage. A lot of times some head trash can sound like, well, I haven't done enough for Gary yet to actually ask for a referral. So they stop themselves and don't ask. So I've found that out there asking for referrals, that there's a weird sort of mathematical truth or a histogram to what I found. So if you are working with people, or if you think about your referral base, we'll call them your referrers. So if you think about those people, out of every 10 people you ask a referral from or ask a referral of, 2 of them will give you referrals. In fact, those 2 will probably give you a referral without you even asking, right? So if you guys have probably, with your experience, been in a situation where you, like, before the sale is even closed, they're like, oh, you got to go meet Wanda. That's who you need to meet, right? They're the kind of people who give them out, right? And then on the other side of that histogram, though, like, no matter how hard you work, no matter how excellent you are, no matter how much they like you, 2 people out of 10 will not give you a referral. They just don't do that. I've asked my mom for a referral and she did not give me any referrals. So it doesn't matter how close you get to these other 2, they just don't give them to you.
Yeah.
But
She
then there's
knows you
another.
better than we do.
Yeah,
So that's a red flag.
that's saying something. Yeah. That's something you don't want to say into a microphone for sure. But yeah,
Right.
there I went
You're
and
old
did it.
enough to find your own bossmans, Josh. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm retired. What do you do again? What's your value proposition? Yeah.
Right.
I got to work for it, man. So 2 people out of 10 who'll give them to you if you don't even ask. 2 people who won't give them to you no matter how many times you ask. But then there's another 6 people who will give you one if you ask. And so in my experience, I've seen that, 8 out of 10 people will give you referrals, but 6 of those 8 have to be asked first. And so I think there's a lot out there on the vine for sellers to use, in terms of, like, the area of opportunity is really big.
No, that's phenomenal, especially once you start doing volume, right? As you
Yeah.
start doing, if you're doing volume, so think about it. If I have 10 prospects or 10 clients that I've delivered on, right? I'm literally leaving 60% of them sitting out there waiting for me to ask, and I'm
That's
going to
right.
try to be too prideful to ask them.
And that's
So
why it's always kind of a wait and see attitude, is because you're counting on the two people to call you once in a while and introduce you to somebody or pass somebody through. And you're not taking an active approach to getting referrals, which is what the rule of seven is meant to do.
then further questioning as we look at it, do you set them up with the right way to give you a referral?
Yeah.
Or, because I've had referrals before where people are like, hey, you need to talk to Joe, he's the car guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want them to call me if they want to buy a car. That's not what I do. Right. And they're like,
Right.
oh no, you're really popular in the automotive industry. I go, but that's not what you said.
Right. You said
Right.
I'm the
You
car
didn't
guy.
say that.
So
Yeah,
like
I'm a car
and
guy.
somebody
So
calls you, they're
okay.
like, Joe, I got a flat tire. I'm out on the
Right.
404, man.
What do I
Yeah.
do? Yes. Where's the jack in my car? And I'm like, use YouTube like the rest of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
those 2 people out of 10 who will provide you a referral no matter what, you can't really control who they
no.
give you. But the great thing about this LinkedIn rule of 7 is you can control who they're talking to. You actually get to pick who the referrals are. So if we apply the rule of 7, it's got 3 applications. So first is a one-to-many refer to prospect scenario. So what this means
Okay.
is if I know Joe and Joe's my referrer, and I know that, if I have coffee with him and I show him 7 people from his network on LinkedIn that I found, there's a chance that he'll know one of those people. So use this application when you encounter other salespeople or when you're trying to mine new prospects into a territory or a vertical. So this applies pretty well for account people or sellers who are out there working a patch of the country, working a specific vertical. Like you've got parameters inside of which you kind of have a no holds barred, kind of approach to selling. Meaning, like, of course, we don't work with companies under 500 people, or of course, we can't go into California. But inside of that box, I can go and I can prospect to anybody. And so, if that's you, you can utilize LinkedIn Sales Navigator to throw your firmographic data up and then pivot off of somebody that you know. And so you guys have had a podcast for a long time, and you have a really big audience. So I'm willing to bet that there's probably some people listening right now who might not know the difference between LinkedIn Vanilla and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So just a quick
Valid. Just the
sort of
spelling alone is different.
yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn Vanilla, that basically the whole goal of LinkedIn. It's a pure play, very sort of natural social media platform with a really clear mission. It's just to tell you who you know and who they know. That's really it. And so if you're on vanilla LinkedIn, I can see Jessica and she's my referrer, but I can see who she knows. But if you've ever tried to use vanilla link, just regular LinkedIn, no sales navigator to do that, you've probably noticed it's a bit of a pain in the ass. Like it has some things that you can do, some levers that you can pull to see who she knows inside of the 1,000 connections that she has, but you're really looking for maybe 15 or 20 people. And it doesn't really give you a lot of tools to do that. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator makes that way easier. That's the difference, is that you pay for a way to take your firmographics. And so I can say, well, I want to talk to people Andrea knows who are sales leaders with a team of salespeople greater than 10 people who are all in California, who all use Gong. And right, so I can kind of throw those firmographics down on top of a subset of people, and it spits back 196 people that I can perform a more detailed amount of research on. But she's not going to know the 21 people that I found. So LinkedIn rule of 7 in this first application says she is going to know 3 on average. So that's the first application, is a one-to-many refer to prospect ratio. I find it really helpful when you're like a wolf out there, and then you see a big field of sheep and you're like, oh, I just found another wolf. Great. So sometimes you run into another salesperson. I typically find, hey, look, if we're not competing, we're not selling the same thing to the same people. Looks like we ran across each other. Maybe we sell into some of the same places. I'll meet you at Starbucks on Thursday at 9. And what I'm going to do is come prepared with 3 people that, that I found in my network who I know well enough to introduce you to. And then you can show up with 3 people who you know well enough to introduce me to, and we'll leave after we send those 3 emails. And you can also, if you don't know who they know well enough, but you want to cherry pick yourself, use the rule of 7 to find out who those people are. So that's the first application, is the one-to-many refer to prospect. Second application, nice. Second application is a many-to-one refer to prospect scenario. So in this scenario, I'm trying to meet Joe. I don't know him, but I do see that he knows Jessica, Andrea, Gary, Kitty, JR, Steve, and Matthew. So all those people I know, and I know that they know one person. So there's a chance, 1 out of 7, that I'll have some match who actually knows him well enough. A lot of times, depending on your industry, this can get a little hairy because your own rule of 7 is going to work against you. So if you find 7 people who actually know Joe, and I'm trying to prospect into Joe to get into this big account, then your own rule of 7 may work against you. But it does work in industries where people aren't likely to leave those industries. So I have people who I help who are in things like, healthcare. They're in education or law. So chances are that smaller group of people kind of are going to give you some opportunities to use this. But the best
they're still
use
going to
case,
be in law at that point, right?
exactly.
The lawyer's
Yeah,
not coming back going, hey, guess what? Now I do sock puppets.
I'm in dental now. Sock puppets, even better. Yeah. Joe's in sock puppets, man. You didn't know that? He's out.
Yeah.
Not doing law anymore.
JR makes them for holidays. Reach out to JR if you need some.
That's right, folks. JR, big on the sock puppeteering.
Yeah.
So the many-to-one ratio is just the inverse of the first application, and it kind of has a limited application. My favorite one is the third application. This is a one-to-one refer to prospect scenario. So you can use this for either of the 2 first scenarios, meaning like it can be a good replacement for trying to prospect into general, white spaces. But it can also be you work with a group of pharma accounts and you only have 11 accounts. And inside those 11 accounts, there's really 70 people total you can talk to. And you can kind of filter down and see who knows who. One-to-one means that there's 1 referrer and 1 prospect. But if I have that conversation 7 different times on average, one of those prospects will know one of those referrers. And so again, use it to break into a big account and use it to start a conversation to initiate the first scenario. So what I like about the third application the most is that, and what makes it my favorite one, is it's a great way to start off the first application. If you just want to create a referral process for yourself, you can go in and say, okay, well, I'm going to do some prospecting today. And like every week, LinkedIn spits out did you know these are 100 good leads for you based on what and most of the time I don't know anybody in there, but a lot of times I can see that if I filter on 2nd degree connections, I might have 35 of those 100 that I do know. And so I can go through each one of those and they're all, and when I say no, I mean, I know them through a 2nd degree connection. So if I filter on 2nd degree connections, I've got 35 people out of the 100 that it gave me, and I can go, cool. All right. Inside of this, I'm going to go and look at each one of these people, and that's 35 separate conversations that I could have to see if I know that person well enough to ask to see if I can meet this person. And 1 out of every 7 times in general, on average, they'll actually know the person well enough to introduce me. But here's what happens. So I go in on my 7 and I find that Joe knows Jessica. I'm trying to meet Jessica and Joe's my guy. do you know her? And he goes, yeah. But then I got 6 other people to deal with. The next 2 people on the list are not going to know the people, and they're not going to get back to you. And you're going to be like, man, I thought we were friends, right? So you have like 2 other people who just don't say anything back to you on average. So we've burnt now 3 of our 7. But you have 4 other people on average who write you back and go, no, I'm sorry. I don't know Jessica. Or I don't know this other person or this other person, right? So I don't know that person. And so what I like to respond with is, hey, Jessica, I understand. I typically find that most people don't know most of their connections on LinkedIn. But if I were to send you a list of 7 people that I found in your network who I think might be good introductions for me, would you be willing to give them a look and let me know if you know any of them? And now I've got 4 new conversations showing each of those people a multiple of 7 people, and if you find 10 or 11 or 5, you go ahead and send them. But know that in this realm anyway, a lot of times what I find is that out of the 28 people you sent in total, you'll get 4 referrals. So if you're trying to systematize a way to build referrals, first realize there's a big opportunity out there. You're not asking for them most of the time. You're waiting for them to come to you. But if you can recognize that if you do ask for them, a lot of times people will give them, this could be a good way to know how much controllable effort you have to put into something in order to get a referral back out of it.
What I like is that, again, we log into LinkedIn, right? And I love going to LinkedIn because I can go find, but I'm still vanilla. So um just look. But when you look at it, you say the I go in and I'm like, I need to find people that are in this industry with this job title and look at them through the network, right? And what
Yeah.
I love is your rule of 7 is now helping me to find the right spots to fish. If that makes
Right.
sense, right? Because we're going to the people and going, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about trying to catch this kind of fish. And now that individual is out there going, well, then don't go over to this part of the lake. You need to go to this part of the lake. And then you have other people that just go, I've never caught a fish like that. I have no clue.
Yeah. And
Right.
it's a big
And
source
then,
of head trash that we talked about earlier, right? Like people don't
right.
even get started with it because they don't think it works. So naturally, I might have to try 6 times before I get my 7th one that actually does connect on something. But if I don't make it there, I formulate this false assumption, this limiting belief, this head trash that says that, yeah, well, no matter how many times I try on LinkedIn, no one ever knows anybody on there. So what point is this?
Right. So then I have another question, a little off topic, but still valid with LinkedIn, right? So consistency is primarily the biggest challenge we have with selling, right?
Yeah.
As salespeople, as prospectors and things. So what strategies do you recommend for maintaining a strong, effective presence on LinkedIn? Or because again, I'm gonna have to tell myself go on LinkedIn. I'm really bad. Like I usually Brian Galkey, who's usually on here with us, he and I compare how many impressions our posts get
Yeah.
every week when it sends off the email to us. And so he totally spanked me last week. And so I was like, man, you're like 50% higher than me. So how did I spend Sunday? Going in and creating posts and scheduling them to go out there with no intent of getting business, just strictly to beat Brian, right? And so when I get business out of it, it'll be a lesson I'll have to learn. But in the process of it, I stop and say, okay, what does my product, what do my people want to see? What is it that would make actually generate views for someone to share and then go through it? But how do, because again, I'm not the most consistent with it. And every Monday I get a text from Brian saying if he beat me or not. And it's usually one, I get to win 1 out of 7. So that works with your
Okay.
theory. So
Yeah.
But
It's everywhere, man. You're going to
yes.
start seeing it everywhere. Is your question, how do I create a consistent content strategy on LinkedIn?
No, I would say, how do I create the again, what was the head trash, right? No one, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
You've helped me set the bar by
Yeah.
saying, just so you know, you're going to have to do 7 things to find one person who actually knows the other person, right? So
Right.
that immediately, and I think that's in sales, what kills everybody is not knowing the numbers, right?
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the guy who says, no, 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 it's not that it's a numbers game, but if you don't know your numbers, how the heck are you gonna
Exactly. Yeah.
even track yourself to say you're doing better or not? So
Right.
you've now set the bar to say, reach out to 7 to find one.
Yes.
Okay. How do I, what is supposed to get me going to go do the 7 consistently?
I got
Like,
you.
do you do it all in one day and you just go, I'm going to hit 100 people and now I should be, finding my 7 people that I talk to? Or is it, I do 5 a day or I do 7 a day kind of thing?
I got you. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Like, I think that
I'm not
we
sure I
have
did. I'm just hoping you picked up on
no,
something.
no,
I just said a
I
lot of
picked up
words.
on it. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I'll
All
answer it
right.
and then you can tell me if I actually understood you. So,
Okay, good.
so what I would start with is your objective, your goal. So if you're prospecting, let's say you're an AE and you're an account executive for a software company, and you've got some accounts that you mind, and you produce some revenue there. There's an inbound team that works over here and they produce some leads that generate new conversations consistently. But for you to hit your personal goal, the one that you're responsible for, you've got to do X amount of prospecting. And let's say that you've identified that, okay, those other things are going to guarantee me a certain amount of revenue, but the delta is about $100,000 a quarter. And so if you've worked out an average sales price, and you know that you've got to close maybe $10,000 deals or get 10 new clients in order to do that, then your math basically backs up into how many different leads you need to generate every single week in order to do that. And so I've just described a bunch of stuff that every sales team knows, right? Meaning, like, we know like how many times we present, and then our CRM basically can tell us on average how often we get something from the number of things we present. And therefore, the number of initial meetings from that has to be 3x what we present, which has to be 3x what we close. There's some waterfall that every sales manager in America knows. Where they get stuck, though, is actually backing it up from there. And so if you know the number of leads that you need, and you consider a referral that Jessica sends to JR on my behalf, and that conversation initiates as a result, then I know now that I've got to take whatever number that is and try 7 times. So if anybody gets anything from this, I hope that they've sort of been able to build a little bit of a system in their minds for how many times they have to try. And you may have some people listening who don't have an industry where enough of their prospects are on LinkedIn. But I find that if
Is
people
that
do
like
know,
burrito cart owners? Because I'm pretty sure everybody's on LinkedIn.
well, I
You've got
actually
a real
work with,
job.
no, yeah, I feel like I would say the same thing before I started working with some of the clients I have. And I have some people in healthcare who sell to doctors, and doctors have been in a practice at a clinic, and just the way that they deal
And they're
with their
not on
business, they're just
LinkedIn
not on it.
promoting
You
themselves.
know?
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the math equation. And hopefully, so for example, if I have to generate 3 new sales meetings each week, and I know that it takes me 10 leads to generate 3 sales meetings, then I need to ask 70 different times, or I need to send 70 names to different people to generate the 10 agreements, or 10, recognition of, yes, they recognize 10 people out of those people. And then it's up to me from there, right? So what we haven't discussed is like what happens next. So let's say that Jessica knows Andrea, He says, yeah, I know her and I'm willing to introduce you. Great. What I recommend is that you always have kind of a boilerplate or canned message already written up to make Jessica's job easier, and say, look, if I provided you some ghost written text, would you be down with just kind of dressing it up a little bit and making it sound like you and then taking it the rest of the way? People always appreciate that. But sometimes you kind of get into a place where somebody says, yes, I know him, but for whatever reason, I'm not comfortable making the introduction, or they say they will, and then they just kind of ghost you for a while. You can go, hey, you know what? Is it okay if I name drop you? And so a name drop in the same scenario would be, Andrea, Jessica thought it might be important that we speak. I know you don't know me, but if we, can get 2 or 3 minutes together, I can give you an idea why she recommended I reach out, and we can take our conversation from there. So different kinds of ways to approach it, either in a name drop or in kind of you got somebody to make the intro, but you're still controlling the number of times that you try. And then that has a function of how many meetings come out of that. And then now we're in your, sales waterfall. We understand from the number of meetings to the number of presentations, how many times I send out a quote or a contract to then closing.
So Joe is going to refer some people because I asked him. Should I ask after he does to contact me, to alert me that he's done what I've asked him to do?
I find it works best if you set it up from the beginning that he copies you on it.
Okay.
So maybe a good example of some ghost written text would be, Joe, I see you know JR. I appreciate that you're willing to make the introduction. Here's some ghost written text that I have. And it could say something like, hey, JR, this is Joe. I don't do this kind of stuff very often, but I've been working with Josh for the last, and make that part actually accurate, right? So if he's been working with you, put something in there. If not, I've heard from other people, or whatever your validation statement is. I think it's important that you speak. I was having coffee with him today. Your name came up. And when I remembered that you manage sales teams, I thought that at a minimum, the two of you would have a good conversation. I'm going to step out. Josh is going to reach out next. But if I can contribute to the conversation in any way, let me know. So that you kind of stay in it, but it also gives your referrer a way to step out, so that they don't have to be worried that they're going to have to manage this for you, and that you're going to continue following up with them. I typically find that if I approach that from a sense of, look, you probably don't want to have to deal with my sales pipeline very much. So I find that if you copy me, I'm able to take it from there, and you're able to bounce.
Very cool.
Fantastic. All right. So we are at our 30-minute mark. I want to say, Josh, thanks so much. I appreciate you on that. And people can reach out to you at the link that's been scrolling across the bottom. KaufmanGroup.Sandler/sales_tails, right? You do have your own podcast.
That's right.
That you're out there called Sales Tales. That's what that's doing.
Yeah.
And you have interviewed a lot of really amazing people.
Some handsome ones too.
Yes. Thank you for that. I was on the show. That's why he said that. So
He was talking about Jessica and Andrea not using the right pronoun, whatever it is.
Right.
Come on now, Joe.
We don't do the pronouns.
Come on
thing.
now.
Come on,
Get the
JR.
glasses
Stop
right,
it.
brother.
Stop it.
I got pronouns, dude and bro.
Yeah,
Those are my pronouns.
So the best place for everybody to find you would be at that link right there, or find him on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I'd say
Right.
even better than the link is LinkedIn/Josh Shirley. I should come up first. I've been on it for a long time. Or Josh Shirley Sandler. Just do those 3 words in LinkedIn. I should be the first thing that pops up. I try to give a lot to LinkedIn. I have a weekly video series that's been running all year, which is 1 minute on the top 1% of all salespeople. You can kind of watch those. It's a lot of helpful stuff that people get down with.
Fantastic. I do appreciate you, Josh, for coming out. And everybody that's out there listening, go out and sell something. Thanks, everybody.
Let's talk about sales, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the challenges that may be. Let's talk about sales. A little bit, a little bit.